In this video, I'll be showing you how to review keywords to make sure that none of them have a cost per conversion that is too high above the average cost per conversion for your ad group. So in order to do this, we're going to need to do this every 4 weeks. We're going to do this by ad group. So every ad group that you have in your account, you need to review it. And we're going to set our time frame to 8 weeks. So we're going to go ahead and come up here, set our time range for 8 weeks, about 2 months. Click apply. We're going to be in search keywords, and then we are going to make sure we're only looking at our search campaigns, and then we are going to make sure we're only looking at one specific ad group. So now that we've got it set for about 8 weeks, we're going to scroll over to our cost per conversion, and we're going to filter that by highest to lowest. So as you can see here, our average cost per conversion is $18.33. And as we can see here, our highest cost per conversion is around $20. So something to keep in mind here, we do have keywords that have lower cost per conversions, but this keyword makes up about 70% of our entire ad group performance. So it's not like if we pause this one, all of these would suddenly be able to make up for it. There is a possibility that it is blocking these keywords from being as high performing as possible because these are phrase match and this is broad match. But most of the time, if you pause the highest performing keyword in terms of like the most number of conversions, it's going to screw up Google's optimization. It's going to be really confused and it's liable to mess up your entire ad group. So if you do want to test to see if pausing this keyword allows you to reduce your cost per conversion because these start getting more conversions, I recommend running an experiment in order to test this. But in the case of just our week-to-week management, nothing in this account falls into the category that we would need to make adjustments. So we're going to look at another account to show you this management technique on a couple other campaigns. So here in this account, we can see some examples of cost per conversions that are just way too high. For example, these two right here have a cost per conversion of 150, while our average for this ad group is right down here at $40. So based on the current criteria, we would want to pause these keywords, but something we want to look at first before pausing them is the average cost, or this is typically known as the cost per click. And so we can see here that the average cost per click is also around double what the average cost per click is for the ad group. So we are not a huge fan of this, even though the quality score isn't bad. It's average or above average. Paying this much for clicks for that low of conversions is not something we are interested in doing. However, what we can do with this lawn mowing service in Nashville is we can see that it's getting some impressions over the course of the 2 months. And it's got a decent click-through rate. So we would want to throw this into our location-specific ad group. If you do not have a location-specific ad group for some of your location keywords, I highly recommend creating one because it will improve the ad's relevance for each of those keywords, and it is likely to change a poor performing keyword in the case of a low cost per or a high cost per conversion into a high performing keyword when it has a ad group and ads dedicated specifically to that location. In the case of this lawn service broad match keyword, this is something that we will definitely pause and we won't reuse anywhere because, as you can see here, it's gotten a lot of impressions. It's got a relatively low interaction rate. We can see the average for the ad group is around 8%. This one is half of that. And it's gotten a statistically relevant number of clicks and impressions for us to confidently say that the cost per conversion for this keyword is just too high. So since it is a broad match, we are going to change it to a phrase match. So we do the exact reverse of what we typically do for a keyword that has a lot of impressions and no clicks. Instead of broadening out the amount of search terms it can show for something with a high cost per conversion, we actually lower the amount of search terms it can show for because it's possible that this is still a good keyword because, as you can see, it's still getting impressions, it's still getting clicks, it's just not getting conversions, so it's probably not showing to as relevant an audience as we would like. So we're going to try to narrow in the audience that it is showing for. If, for example, this phrase match one, we were not going to move it into its own ad group. We were just going to keep it how it is and do our normal optimization. We would change it from phrase match to exact match. And if it was an exact match keyword that was getting too high a cost per conversion, we would then just go ahead and pause that. And it's possible that this, by changing it to a phrase match, it just stops performing and it gets very little impressions. And frankly, that's okay as well, because the other alternative was just go ahead and pause it. So we might as well leave it as a phrase match to give it a chance to possibly get better performance. And if the performance is not up to par and the impressions become really low over the course of the next month and there's no clicks, then it will fall into our other category of not high performing enough, and then we will adjust it from there. One thing to keep in mind when doing these adjustments is that we don't want a bunch of swinging back and forth between broad match to phrase match to broad match, because obviously we've tried it at broad match, we're trying it as a phrase match. We don't want to then switch it back to broad match if it then gets a low number of impressions or a high number of impressions with no clicks. So make sure to keep a note of the keywords that you change from broad match to phrase match and from phrase match to exact match, because we don't want to change them from here and then go through this process again in a month and then accidentally change it back. So this is something that needs to be kept up with very accurately, because you don't want to run into the case where you're countering your own changes on accident because you're trying to follow this to the T. So that's another reason to keep good notes, is so that way you don't overlap the changes and cancel them out. I hope this video helps kind of break down the ways to adjust your keywords if they have cost per conversions that are too high. Feel free to reach out to Creekside Marketing if you need help with any of your digital marketing needs, and we will see you in the next video.